Howdy, y'all. Joe Hills here from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm about to read aloud to you Chapter 3 from Jacq of All Blades, Soul Music, as in the bottom of your shoes, not the song in your heart. And the first page in this chapter is a little bit different from a lot of what we read so far because it's got a voiceover with action. And so I think that I'm going to go ahead and describe the action in each panel, and then I'm going to go back and return to the voiceover at the end. So the first panel shows Princess Jackie Kepler climbing up a little rock face, and Marbles the Magician is already standing atop it looking down at her. And then we see her continuing past the forest, and she's in some sort of fields or hilly area, and she's just like all worn out and panting from all the walking. And Marbles the Magician is just firing marbles into the air out of his sleeves, just tons and tons of marbles everywhere. And then Jackie, reaches the top of the hill and looks down at all the marbles and is just like, I have no idea what's going on there. And then we see in the next panel, Marbles has taken a log and is sliding down the hill with Jackie and him riding the log, just throwing up the glass ball marbles that he created everywhere behind them. And then in the next panel, Marbles is hovering across a river, and Jackie is like gesturing wildly at Marbles, hey, come get me, that sort of thing. So then we see, from Jackie's point of view, Marbles reach out his hand to the young princess. And then in the final panel, Marbles is now hovering across the river while dragging Jackie through the water behind him. And she's just freaking out and all wet. So I'm going to now go back and read the monologue for this. I tried reading it other ways before in other takes, and it works better this way, trust me. On Friday night, a necromancer died in Detroit. He lived for centuries, but of all the stories in all the ages and all the world, he exploded in mine. I know why. I felt his fury at the fall of magic. I understood his desperation as he was torn and twisted inside, clinging to the power that our world rejected. His name was Frank Pyron. I never met him, but he wouldn't have liked me anyway. My name is Marbles the Magician. In less than a week, I will be dead. Page 32. Jackie and Marbles are standing across, they've made it past the river now, and Jackie holds up her revolver to Marbles and says, we gotta be getting close to Bidford by now, but I'm worried this gun will draw a lot of attention. So Marbles does a hat trick and puts the gun inside of his magician's hat, like it's his top hat, and Jackie says, wow, that's great, but I don't want to have to reach into your hat every time I need my gun. And so then Marbles reaches behind her back and hammer space pulls the gun right out. And so Jackie says, wait, can I put it back the same way? And Marbles nods. Jackie, replaces the gun, like a little bit of a shimmer glow thing behind her, and says, this is so neat. We're all set to sneak into town and score something to eat. It's such a pain that my mom banned you from magicking me up food. 10 years earlier, we cut to Jackie's mom and dad are poking their head around the corner or through the doorway, and there's just candy like 3 or 4 feet deep, which is about a meter, all over Jackie's bedroom. Jackie is jumping up and down on the bed as a 3-year-old wearing a t-shirt that says, I'm a little girl, and yelling, why do they call you Candy? Why do they call you Candy? Why do you call you Candy? While Marbles is just throwing candy everywhere. All of his sleeves are just exuding, extruding, exploding with candy every second. Lots of candy, lots of motion. Page 33. So then so Jackie is pointing downhill and says, hey, there's some people way down there. Maybe they have food. And so she comes across 5 people. One of them is an imp with a green lipstick wearing some sort of like crazy lace corset thing and carrying a base. Another one is dressed like a sailor. He's a human guy. with like a sailor thing with a kerchief and whatnot. Another guy is a orc with like long black hair and a shirt with a skull on it. And then finally there is a elf girl, like a wood elf girl, who's got a tambourine and braided hair and a dress with little floral print. And then behind them is like a roadie carrying some microphone stands or something, like a big guy with a bandana. So Jackie says, hey, are you guys some kind of band? And the imp lady says, we're not just some kind of band, we're both kinds of band. And then we see one by one, each of the band members introduces themselves. The orc popping the the horns or whatever with the two fingers, doing that symbol, saying, we're Exit Light. And it says Bruce underneath him. And then, Afternoon Delight, says a guy named Mick, who's the sailor, and he's strumming his guitar. And then the hippie girl, or the wood elf, Flower, says, we fight the power. And then finally the imp woman with the bass says, but no, we'll ultimately be corrupted by it. And her name is Eve. So, anyway, so then Mick says, we're touring to promote our new single, Detroit Burnin'. And Bruce continues, it's about Friday's destruction of the Rotor City. And Jackie just starts like looking totally freaked out. But my mom was in Detroit on Friday. And so then the wood elf girl, Flower, says, what's her name? And then Eve says, if it rhymes with what we got, I'll put it in our litany of dead people. So then the next page, we've got Melik Orhan, the president of Texas, in his office, like really angry, slamming his hand on his desk, talking to one of his generals. What do you mean Pyron blew up the Western Fleet? And then the general replies, details are scarce, but we're certain the Minister of Defense was killed. And then Melik says, you need to thank the rabbit god you're bringing me, Jill Kepler, because otherwise I'd force you into retirement and send your ass home in a second. And the general says, not home, that's where my wife lives. And then we have a flashback. Previously on Industrial Revolutionary. And Jill says to the dark elf kid with the D8 shirt, Chiff, have you seen the parachute prototype I've been working on? Parachute? And then Jill like pops out these like massive metal angel wing type things, or hawk wings, like something they're crazy, out of her backpack, and it actually like breaks two of the nearby steam pipes. Hiss, hiss. That's my steam pipe noise. So then shortly later, we've got Chiff and then this other fella, Hashi, who's the plant electrician, and Jill are like surrounded by cups of coffee and notes and sketches. And Chiff says, then the springs on the wings broke the piston rings on their tandem upswings. And Hashi says, still not a haiku. And Chiff replies, I know! And then suddenly a bunch of Texan soldiers burst into the plant, and the Minister of Defense says, who is accompanying the soldiers, Dr. Kepler, how convenient. Grab her. And then Jill says, do what you want to me, but let the boy go. And the Minister of Defense says, better idea. Take the boy too and kill him if she struggles. So then Jill stops struggling and is now just kind of disappointed, and Chiff is kind of super surprised. And then we cut to them on the airship, and Chiff says, great, Dr. Kepler, now I'm kidnapped by Texans. Thanks a lot, Doc. And then suddenly we see one of the bursts of Pyron's magical explosion fly past them, and they both like freak out and are screaming. And then Chiff immediately, realizing that the factory that he had been in moments earlier is just completely destroyed along with most of the city, grabs her. Well, he doesn't really grab her because he's still tied. They're both tied up, but he kind of like slams his body into her and is like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you imagine like hugging somebody without like having your arms, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, page 35. So, Chiff and Jill are in the airship, and they are flying somewhere over land. Don't know exactly where they are. And Schiff says, Dr. Kepler, I can't be a political prisoner. I'm not even registered to vote. And Jill says, don't worry, Schiff, I've got a plan. First, I'll need a fire extinguisher. And then later, one of the Texan soldiers is shoving Jill and yells, nobody turns a fire extinguisher into a makeshift rocket on my watch. And then the other guy says, mine too, you dumb bitch, and grabs her really harshly. And the first soldier goes, wow, rage much? And the second guy says, she's a leader of the country we are at war with. Who else could I shove for hours with impunity? And the first soldier says, good point. So then double plus later, we show both of the soldiers are kind of panting on either side of the airship, and Jill is like all wobbly and dizzy. And the first soldier says, okay, I think I need a break. And then the other's like, come on, can't waste this. And then all of a sudden, Jill opens up her parachute, and the metal wings pop out and both cut the ropes that are binding her, and I believe snap the necks of both soldiers. I mean, they both get hit on the chins pretty good. There's no way their bodies kept up pace with that. So then Jill says, not so tough now, are you boys? And then Schiff goes, Doc, he can't hear you. And Jill says, I bet he's out cold. And then Schiff says, no, I mean his head went out the window. And then he asks, great plan, but why didn't you tell me about the second half? And Jill is untying Schiff as she says, Schiff, a fully explained plan never works. So then Schiff smiles and says, you're so smart. I bet that once you've got me untied, we'll fly safely back to the old world, reunite with your daughter and husband, and then retake Rome without anyone getting hurt at all. And Jill is just super frowning, very displeased that he enumerated the points of that plan, because now it is a self-unfulfilling prophecy. Joke explained. Next page. Page 36. So then Eve, the basest imp, asks Jackie, what's your name? And Jackie says, Jackifer? And Flower replies, nice to meet you, Jackifer. With a name like that, you must be from the capital. Are you a refugee from the Texan attack? And Jackie, trying to keep her princess refugee status under wraps, replies, no, I'm a shoe seller. And so then Mick asks, got anything good? And then Davy points over at Marbles, who's floating around, and says, her buddy has hover shoes. That's so awesome. Imagine how cool our shows would be if we had hover shoes. And then we see his vision of the band all floating around playing their instruments, except for him, because drumming while wearing hover shoes is really hard, because he's like up in the air and can't reach the drum kit. So then each of them says in turn, I'll take a pair. Me too. Me 3. And Flower says, can I get mine in sandals? And Jackie says, I don't actually keep the shoes on me. And Eve replies, but you can order some. Take my money. And then Mick, mine too. And, then another one, is 800 enough? And then suddenly we show Flower pulls Jackie really close and say, I believe no one can truly own anything. And they are just straight up nose to nose here. But I'm willing to make an exception for hover shoes. Page 37. So Jackie says to them, because she doesn't actually have any shoes to sell, I hate to miss out on a sale, but I'm in a hurry to reach Indianapolis. And Flower replies, that's okay. We're heading south too. And Eve continues, we booked a hotel for the night, so you can stay in one of our rooms and ride south with us in the morning. And Mick asks, now, which hotel rooms are still clean? And the drummer says, I think 221 is okay. And then the roadie says, not 221, there's vomit everywhere. So then Mick asks, wasn't 227 all right? And the roadie says, considerable fire damage. So the drummer asks, 235, what's wrong with that one? And the roadie kind of scratches his butt and says, broken lamp. And then Mick points out, and you can just replace that with the lamp from 221. To which the roadie replies, vomit everywhere. Page 38. We see Jackie and Marbles in a hotel room with a broken lamp. And Jackie says, oh, who knew that being a shoe salesman involved measuring feet? I mean, seriously, that flower elf's feet were bad, but I don't think those green people have ever taken off their boots. I do feel bad, though. I don't want to rip them off, especially after they've been so nice to me. And, Jackie is, taking off her vest and letting her hair down to go to bed. And she says, Marbles, what should I do? And Marbles is already sleeping at this point. And so she says, you're right. I'll think better in the morning. So she lies down, and then we show that Marbles has snuck out and has snuck into Gramps' shoe store and is currently packaging shoes, and he's got bags under his eyes. He's been awake all night. And so then the next morning, the old guy who owns the place is like, shoe elves have been here, stealing my supplies again. And his young apprentice says, Grandpa, you can't just stick adjectives in front of elves and have it be a thing. Meanwhile, in Indianapolis, we show a gentleman talking to June Carmoli, the CEO of Carmoli Wang Film Company, saying, so these Space Marine elves and alien elves join forces to fight zombie elves. And June Carmoli is throwing her hands up in the air saying, I love it. Make it a trilogy. Page 39. We show Jackie and Marbles are back in their beds sleeping. And all of a sudden from outside there's a wee. And Jackie is like, what? And outside the band is all floating around with their hover shoes. And Eve says, these hover shoes are the best. And then the drummer says, you must have put in a rush order to get them here so fast. And Flower says, you're the greatest, Jackifer. And Jackie's pretty confused about all this, and she says, you're welcome, as she zips up her vest. And the roadie says, I appreciate you throwing in a pair for me, too. And he's hovering in the air, and he is about to pick up a box, and the box is so big, and he's all off balance because of the hover shoes. So as he starts tumbling, he says, oh no, sweet baby rabbit god, no! And then as he's on the ground with the box on top of him, he says, tell my wife I love hover shoes. And Jackie says, looking down at him crushed under the box, is he dead? And the drummer says, no, just putting his theater degree to use. And so Mick says, you broke our roadie, Jackifer, so the bandana clause states that you are a new roadie. And Jackie says, I don't think that's how it works. And Flower replies, in nature, all things are cyclic. If you don't carry our stuff, we'll sue you for selling unsafe shoes. And then in the last panel, Jackie's just carrying this huge box, super mad. So, page 40. We've got one of the soldiers who's got a officer's mark on his collar, saying to Billy and Sheila, I don't care that she's an enemy of the state. My men will never turn in a 14-year-old over to that freak. And Billy says, I guess I can talk to Melik and he can ask Mr. G about... And Sheila cuts him off with her hand on his shoulder saying, no, Billy, Melik has made his decision and you are not going to bother him. And Billy says, but he makes a good point. No one wants to see the princess end up with Grosvenor, do we? And Sheila says, look, your soldiers don't need to know Grosvenor is keeping her. Next problem. And Billy says, I don't know. So then we see two of the general infantry soldiers just hanging out and talking, and another one, a scout sniper, Megan McBarnes, who's here for the GI Bill, is sitting on a crate in the background. And the first soldier says, so I said, if this is boot camp, where are the boots? I was later issued a pair. So then all of a sudden Grosvenor is sitting down next to Megan, the Texan scout sniper, and he says, if I'd known that the Texan military embedded comfort woman, I'd have enlisted years ago. And Megan says, I'm not here to comfort anyone. And Grosvenor replies, it's a euphemism, whore. Leave me the hell alone. What's the matter? Nervous about seeing a little action? And she replies, I've seen combat. What's your MOS, platoon mom? Are you going to serve them in baby carrots now? Scout sniper. I'm a real soldier. Ha! I bet you see a lot of combat through a scope. I guess I'm a real fire god then, because I once watched a volcano from a mile away. Page 40. The officer says, okay, man, Megan, we are Operation Child Grabber. And everyone's gathered in a tent with electrical lighting. There's a huge map behind the officer. And there's a bit of an owl kind of poking in through one of the tent's flaps that we can only assume is Wanwu Sai in shapeshifted owl form. And the officer says, our team will insert 200 miles south of the capital, at the Wallace Dam. We'll drain about half of Noah's Lake, wiping out the bridges below the dam. With the bridges out, the river wide, and the current strong, the princess will be forced to travel upstream and cross at the dam itself, where we will be waiting. And Sai is listening interestedly now at this, and the officer continues. The Roman Corps of Engineers that man the dam have probably already deserted, but because the princess is guarded by a powerful shapeshifter, each crossbowman will be issued a small flamethrower. The princess must be taken alive so we can use her as bait to capture her father. We depart immediately after this briefing. Any questions? And one of the soldiers asks, Sir, who's the new guy? And Sai thinks to herself, everyone thinks I'm in southern Rome and Grosvenor is on his way out of the city. This is my best chance to kill Milik and retrieve my old host body. I'm sure Jackie will be fine. And we see Grosvenor getting onto an airship about to head south, along with a bunch of soldiers carrying boxes labeled child traps, and the sniper walking up behind them. And Chapter 3.